James Harrison strip sack, that's a big deal. That's a big freaking deal. One of the biggest plays of the game. What I just said, tripping up the quarterback right before he gets a half a yard, not a big deal.
Johnny Mac Jones, get into this Eagles game coming up. All right, week 5, Eagles, Rams, Sean Payton, Bo Nix, and the Denver Broncos come to Philadelphia for a 1 p.m. matchup, John, at Lincoln Financial Field. It should be a good one. There's a lot to talk about in this game. And you know, we've kind of had a week that has been a little off because of all the A.J. Brown stuff, so we haven't quite had a chance to dive into it as much today. We will take some super chats from all the great people of JAKIB Nation. Actually, before I go to that Rams game, I think I got a super chat on Kyle Shanahan. Yeah, let me read it real quick. Josh says, Kyle Shanahan can coach his ass off. Mac Jones out here balling with bums, and we can't get the ball to AJ. Night and day. Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Well, look. Anybody who's listened to me over there, I love Kyle Shanahan I think he's the best in the business when it comes to what fans seem obsessed by, which is play calling and scheming and things like that. I think he's number one. I don't think it gets higher than him in this industry. But, you know, he's also had some troubles as a head coach because the job is much bigger than just play calling and scheming. Much, much bigger. And the Eagles have had more team success than the 49ers have had. And the 49ers have had tremendously talented teams. You know, they famously derailed the Eagles' 2023 season with the beatdown, but the year prior, Jonathan Gannon's high point of the Eagles' defensive coordinator stint, showing the fans the 10 seconds the fans were behind him when he rolled down his window and said, "We're going to gut this team," and they gutted the team. Now injuries, the Eagles, Hassan Reddick knocked out the quarterback, completely legal play, and they were down to using Christian McCaffrey for a short period. So there was a lot of circumstance, but very good team, very talented team. So don't give me the talent bullshit. You know, Nick's a better head coach, but Kyle is a better play caller and play schemer.
Similar to McVay, right? I mean, shit.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Bigger job.
It is, man. It is. There's no doubt about it. Good stuff there. Appreciate the super chat there, Josh Herman. All super chats today we will take. All right, opened up show today, so we're going to dive deep into this Eagles Week 5 game. John, let's start with just the first couple things in your mind. I got some things written down that I want to talk to you about. But you think Eagles Broncos coming in? They've had a pretty good start to the year. They're graded high in a lot of different places. Johnny Mac playing pretty good football right now for that Denver team. Just the first couple things that come to mind for you when you think about this matchup, Eagles-Broncos in Week 5.
Well, I mean, the most interesting part to me is obviously Vic Fangio and that defense against young quarterbacks, what I think is advantage Eagles, to say the least. I do think Bo Nix has played obviously probably got some confidence back last week. They were not playing well early in the season. So I'm sure that gave him some confidence, but he overall, he's not played well early in the season. So they have to correct that. What I like about Denver is they're starting to build up in the right way. They have one of the NFL's best offensive lines. This is very familiar. It should be if you're an Eagles fan. And they have a tremendous pass rush, which, again, should be familiar, even though the Eagles are having some difficulty this year after losing some players. So, to me, and this is probably indicative of another good head coach, and Sean Payton, is they're building it up the right way. So, if Bo Nix starts to get it a little bit more, they're in a position to make a big step forward. But, are they there yet? No, probably not.
No, John, you just point out their offensive line. PFF came out with their new grades for the offensive lines. You pointed out that the Eagles were number 1, I think in week 3 or maybe through week 4. But now Denver is number 1, John. How about that?
Yeah.
PFF came out. Denver 1, Buffalo 2, Eagles 3, Cardinals 4, and Colts 5. So Gannon, Steichen, and Sirianni all on that with good offensive lines. But yeah, Denver's number one right now, John. That's big, and that's a big part of the reason I think Bo Nix is been able to play pretty good so far. So that's going to be a tough test for this defensive line that obviously has some injuries. Jalen Carter's working through some things. Nolan Smith's obviously out, and we're thin on the edge. So that's going to be a good battle, John, in the trenches here for this game.
Yeah, it is. And this will probably, and I asked Josh Uche that yesterday, is this the best offensive line you're going to see or you have seen, you don't know, down the road? And he said, yeah, I mean, they're good. And it's, Garrett Bowles is one of the best tackles in football. Quinn Miners is one of the best guards in football. Mike McGlinchey's a veteran, knows how to play. Ben Powers is a good player. Probably the weak point is the center, I would say. So, maybe a big Jalen Carter, Moro Jomo game on the pass rush. But Jalen Carter talked yesterday. His shoulder thing, man, he wouldn't explain directly what it was, but he used the word sort of serious, whatever that means. And obviously it's hurting him. You see, and I'm paraphrasing, but he didn't want to say serious, but he used a sort of qualifier. But you've seen him leave. He lost it. He left the game for a short period in Tampa. You've seen him holding his arm, and this goes back to the start of training camp. It's the same injury, so it's one of those things where he says he can play through, and he has been playing through. But he also said at some point he might have to sit down for a while. So that's something to keep an eye on. He could explain, what is going on as far as, people expecting him to make that leap from second team all pro to defensive player of the year, which is not happening at this point. So I'm trying to look at the quotes, but everybody's got injuries depending on if it's small or if it's big. When the right time comes, if I need to stop or take a little break, work more on my shoulder, that time is going to come. That set me off. I'm like, that time's going to come. So, but he said, as of right now, I feel good enough to play. So it's bigger than it's big, but this is football. Same thing we're talking about with Landon Dickerson all the time. Guys are always hurt. Guys are always banged up. Because they're out there doesn't mean they're not hurt. And it could explain when players at that level that you expect a certain level out of that are not playing at that level.
Yeah, interesting stuff here, John. And then also the other thing I saw that came out yesterday, Broncos defense this season. Who's ready for this? First in sacks with 15. First in pressures with 104. First in pressure rate with 46.8. That Broncos D line, John, they're built well in the trenches right now. Now I know they haven't had all the greatest competition just yet, but still, man, that's impressive numbers for that Broncos defense. And that just gave you obviously the offense ranked out number one. So Broncos trenches, John, they're pretty good in the trenches, man. Those are pretty impressive numbers for that D line.
Yeah, well, they're more impressive on the edge than inside. I mean, Nick Bonito he might be the best player that people don't know about. Well, everybody in Denver does, but I mean, he might be the best speed rusher right now in football. Now, typically the Eagles tackles handle that pretty well, but this might be a situation where you win 85% of the reps, but you're getting schooled on a couple plays because he's just so dumb. And then on the other side, Jonathan Cooper is very good. Inside, John Franklin Myers is maybe one of the more underrated interior pass rushers. Zach Allen's very good. And then they have DJ Jones. So, yeah, they're good up front. Obviously, they have one lockdown corner, maybe the best corner in football, who hasn't played like it early in the season. So you got to take advantage of that. Patrick Surtain, who's the reigning defensive player of the year. Riley Moss is kind of up and down at the other corner position, but he's got talent. Hufanga is the old 49ers safety. If you remember him from there, he's a good player. They're good. They're talented on defense. And Vance Joseph is very good.
Yeah, no doubt about it, John. They're 2-2 on the year here. So, they've had a decent start. Bo Nix, I think, they played last week on Monday night. So they're on a short week, but they played the Jake Browning Bengals, so they have wins over
That's a confidence game, the rare confidence game.
Yeah, I mean, here's my problem right now with Denver. We always talk about how September you have some real pretenders. Last year it was the Saints and September's a liar's month, as Cilio calls it, but they have wins over the Joe Burrow-less Bengals and the Tennessee Titans, arguably the worst team in football right now. And they lost to the Chargers and the Colts. So, they've beaten two shoddy teams. They've lost to two teams that look a little bit better at this point. So I think they're still kind of trying to find their way. But I do think that's worth noting that they've beaten the Bengals and the Titans.
Well, you can only play who's in front of you. But I would say about the team as a whole, I think what's holding them back is the quarterback, which is one of the reasons why I wasn't as high on them as some people. Like, he's not playing at the level you need right now. Now he played better against the Bengals. That's why I called it a confidence game. But that's the matchup I don't like from the Broncos perspective is Bo Nix trying to deal with Vic Fangio and all those exotic looks that he's about to get. I don't think that's going to go well. So, I mean, right now he's graded, PFF, he's graded 33 of 36. That ain't good.
No, that's
and he's not played well at all during that 1-2 start. And if you look at their team grades, they do everything pretty well except tackling, which is everybody. There's a lot of shitty tackling grades early in the season. And passing, the passing game, and the passing game it ain't related to the offensive line. It ain't related to the running game because J.K. Dobbins is having a heck of an early season. It's not related to the receivers because Cortland Sutton's probably another guy who, if he played in a bigger market, people would know about. It's a quarterback, and you're not playing well. And I don't think you start playing well against Vic Fangio as a young quarterback.
Me neither. Although Vic did have some praise for him this week. I mean, hey, look, that doesn't mean
he's Lou Holtz in him.
Yeah, right.
Well, he compared him to. He said the same thing about Baker Mayfield, and he had Baker Mayfield making shitty decisions all over the place.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, he did. He called him. He said he's a lot like Baker Mayfield. Was the Vic quote? And he said, "I think he might be Baker's younger brother."
That might be Vic's backhanded way of right. I'll take advantage of this guy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So we're going to see about how Bo Nix matches up. So far this year, John, I think he's had a decent year so far. I mean, he's gotten his receivers involved. Statistically decent year. I mean, a lot of that was boosted up, but yeah, you're right. He's graded out not very high. But their offense overall, I mean, with that offensive line, Cortland Sutton's had a good year so far. I think he's got 18 receptions for 266 and 3 touchdowns. They got Troy Franklin, who's catching balls, and Marvin Mims, who is catching balls. And then I mean, they do have some pieces on that offense that could give the Eagles a fit, but I still don't feel like they match up. You think Quignon's going to travel in this game? We didn't think he was going to travel last week, and he ended up traveling. On Sutton?
Yeah, I don't know. At this stage, I don't know because Big said probably not, and he did not all the time, but he did travel more than expected in Tampa Bay. He's doing it more. He's doing it more for a reason. So I can't say no. He might do the reverse Belichick move where you take out the number 2 receiver and then bracket Sutton. He might do that, which I think a lot of people lose. But again, and I haven't looked at Denver more close. I'll look at them. I'll look at their personnel groupings with if they move them into the slot, and I got to look, which I don't think they do.
Yeah, I don't think they do. Not with Sutton, I don't believe.
Yeah. That complicated. Like, he doesn't move Quignon into the slot at all. So, he'll just between X and Z, which I'm surprised he admitted to me, to be honest, but he did the other week. So it's got to be between X and Z, and maybe, but it might be taking the other guy out of it as well. And that's probably because it's a fluid situation with Adoree Jackson and Keely Ringo now. Adoree should be back this week. He seems fine. So that'll be interesting. Who's the starting corner on the other side will be probably even more interesting because I'd stick with Ringo, but I don't know if Vic likes Ringo enough to stick with him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting. Do you think they're going to – I would assume they're going to target Ringo more this week.
I would assume,
than they
but
did last week.
I would assume, but I would have bet the house on that last week. There's some dumb football teams, man.
Yeah, they are. Broncos offense, John, also has J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey, both averaging over 5 yards a carry right now, 5.7 for Dobbins. He's got 57 rushes for 323 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then they got R.J. Harvey, 27 rushes for 138, 5.1 yards per carry there. So that offensive line has done good for them to be able to run the ball as well. So that's obviously something that will help a player like a Bo Nix. So Eagles are going to have to take away the run in this game, or at least mitigate it.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. Vic, he's willing to trade off a little bit. So, I'm not as concerned with the run support as other people are because I think it's baked into how he plays defense. If he's got true issues with the run, what he believes are true issues with the run, you'll know it because he'll drop the extra defender and make it a 5-man front. And if he's having real issues, he'll make it a 6-man front. So I haven't seen that a lot yet. So I don't think he's concerned with it. And until he gets concerned with it, I'm not going to be too concerned with. I can tell you who is. Merrill's very concerned with it because he saw J.K. Dobbins' number. How can he have better numbers than I can't do it, Merrill? People can, but how could he have better numbers than Saquon Barkley? I go, it's not that big of a deal, Merrill.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, I digress.
Love Merrill. We won't be giving Merrill any shots. No, but J.K. The one thing about J.K. Dobbins, John,
very
is
concerned. Is all
Cooper's tackling is going to have to be on display again. He's a dude that doesn't go down easily. I think he's like 5'10", J.K. Dobbins, 215. Probably.
I'm not worried about Cooper's tackling.
No, me neither. But it's going to have to show up again, this week from the slot because those guys are. They're two gritty backs. They're like boulder type of backs. They're not really, they're
hey, that's what I want. What I don't want is Saquon from last year. That's the only thing I'm concerned with in the running game. And by that I mean I don't want the home run. I can deal with the
5 yards a carry.
Yeah. I'm fine with that. As long as that's your approach. You got to have Vic's approach, but if you're trying to stop the run, I'm not. And by trying to stop the run, everybody's trying. I'm not saying he's not trying to stop the run, but what I mean by that is if you're going all out to try to stop the run with heavy boxes and things like that, and you're giving up 5 yards to carry, then I'm concerned. The Eagles aren't doing that to this point.
No, John, we mentioned we mentioned their offensive line though, John. Where do you think the Eagles could, try and go, have an advantage here or look to penetrate that offensive line? They have Garrett Bowles, who I think is like 33 years old now, that left tackle. He's played amazing the first 4 weeks. He's only given up 4 pressures, 0 sacks, 2.4 pressure percentage allowed, and a 91.9 pass pro grade. So he's been exceptionally well, playing exceptional for a 33-year-old. You mentioned Quinn Miners, who was a first-team All-Pro last year. Mike McGlinchey. I think Mike McGlinchey's a local guy.
Yeah, he's a Philly guy.
Yeah, he's a Philly guy. That's right. Did he go to LaSalle? He might have went to LaSalle High School. I'd
have to look up, but he went to Notre Dame. He was on San Francisco on some of those great teams before he moved over.
Penn Charter guy. Yeah, that's right. Went to Notre Dame.
Yeah, not great, but really solid. Typical Notre Dame offensive lineman.
Right.
Just solid. I shouldn't say that because there's some great Notre Dame, Zach Martin being number one, but they're all good, is what I'm trying to say. If you want offensive line, go draft a Notre Dame guy, but and he's been in the league for a long time. Yeah, they're just solid. They're solid up front. And like I said before, the one issue is the center. Luke Wattenberg, he's not that good, so he's sort of the weakest link. So to me, it's got to be Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Morrow, Ajomo game. And I think Morrow had a big game against Tampa, so I think he's starting to come on.
Yeah, Luke Wattenberg is that center, as you mentioned, and then Ben Powers, who's been around for quite a bit as well. So they got a decent offensive line. There's no doubt about it. It's going to be interesting to see. What do you think, John, of the pass rush so far for the Birds through 4 weeks? They only have 5 sacks, but everybody who listens to Birds 365 knows how you feel about sacks and the way those numbers go. Just your thoughts kind of on the pass rush, what you've seen through the first 4 weeks so far.
Yeah, well, I think it's been average. I don't think it's been terrible, which a lot of people think it is because of the lack of sacks. I think it's been, at times, it's been very situationally, it's been very good. And that speaks to why this team, besides the turnovers, the reason why this team is 4-0, the biggest reason in my opinion is the red zone. Both sides, offensively and defensively.
Right.
They've been great in the red zone. So that factors into it as well. But, I was trying to, PFF has them as the 4th best pass rushing team in the NFL. I think that's a little bit too high. But again, contextually, they're not nearly as bad as people think they are. But
they've also played 3. I'm pretty sure they've played all the top 3 quarterbacks in time to throw. Right, Mahomes, Baker, and Stafford. If I have to go to Next Gen Stats, the state, but I'm pretty sure those 3 guys are at the top of the list in time to throw. So you're not going to get as many sacks when the quarterback throws it at 2.5 seconds.
Well, I'm not there. There's different styles. Like you should be able to sack Baker, but you're not going to really sack Matthew Stafford that much. To me, it's more about styles of play than just the raw time to throw stat, because that will, the sample size is still too small, especially with guys who extend the play. Mahomes is sort of in the middle there. So, like I always bring up, like you weren't sacking Tom Brady a lot.
Right.
Brandon Graham will yell at, obviously in the biggest moment, but historically, you're not sacking him a lot. You're not going, hey, we're going to get 6 sacks this week. And really the only guy like that they faced is Stafford. So, but again, the pressure numbers are there. So to me, they're just not finishing. And finishing is a trait. I always say it. So I'm not dismissing that. And when I say sacks are overrated, they are overrated because you got to look at the context of each sack. They're never a bad thing, though, which I constantly tried to say I constantly tried to tell Jody, and he just wouldn't accept it. But if you look at the win percentages, Uche is off the charts. He's been great in limited time, obviously.
Right.
Because
he's a limited player. I mean, he's better going down at the quarterback. He's
Yeah.
not obviously a full 3-down guy.
Darius has been tremendous, which doesn't surprise me at all. That's his history at this age. As he got to be a veteran player, he's got these. He generally has this spike when he starts, and then he wears down. So it's something to keep an eye on, especially now that he's got to play more snaps. So I am a little bit concerned there. Inside, Morrow, after that Tampa game, he's doing really well. Jalen Carter's still doing really well. And win percentage. So, there's a bunch of guys. The 2 guys that are concerning are Jalix Hunt, and even though people think this is the example of it, Jordan Davis's win percentage inside as a pass rusher is 4.4%. That's not good. People think he's having a good season. He is having a good season because he's got a different role.
Right.
But where you need is Morrow to build that sort of Milton Williams role, and he hadn't been doing that in Tampa Bay. He did it. So, if you can get more consistency there, and then the sacks will come. They'll come. But yeah, I mean, I'm still concerned about the edge rushers because without Nolan Smith, guys who need to be in those situational roles, Josh Uche and Zadarius Smith even more so, they have to play more. And the more they play, I think it's detrimental to them holding up long term. And then Jalen Hunt is he's got to play a lot, and he's a guy who's still learning on the job, so to speak.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. Interesting approach here with this Denver offense. Kind of a weird one to gauge with Bo Nix. I do think you're right at large, though. Vic Fangio will get the better of Bo Nix at least a couple times in that game. Will the Eagles be able to feast on it? I think they will. We will see how that plays out. John, flipping over to the Eagles offensive side of the ball coming in to this game. Boy, there's a lot to talk about there, John, as we've been talking about all week long. But
the Eagles' offense.
The drama that you've had this week. What is the approach, John, coming in this week versus a pretty stout Denver defense in this matchup in Week 5?
Not look egregiously bad.
Not have the tale of two halves. Can we retire the tale of two halves thing where we have one half where we look like the Super Bowl champions?
I am going to predict. I am going to predict they don't have a half where they don't complete a pass.
Yeah. Okay.
I am gonna go over on that. Yeah. I mean this is I'm starting to come to grips with this is just an ugly offense, and you better get used to it because it's been an ugly offense for a couple of years. Now, where you need the improvement is you're going to have those lulls, but you need to. And to be fair, they face pretty good defenses. But again, if you saw, everybody's talking up the Rams front, me included. I think it's best. And every game's different. This is not a transit league. Everything's week to week. Every game has a personality. But you got a backup quarterback throwing football all over the lot against the Los Angeles Rams. So it's very uneven. It's very off kilter. There's not a lot of chemistry. There's not, the offensive line wants to get to the line of scrimmage faster. Cam Jurgens was saying that's why you had the bad snap, because he's looking up at the play clock and here we go, tick, tick, tick. And they're down there. He's like, I gotta get this back, and bang, you got a bad, but I think that's a league-wide problem. I've said.
Well, you heard my Lotta. He's going to be focused on it this week. He said that as a leader, that I will be focused on that this week. So hopefully he pushes them.
Well, as Nick said, there's a lot to it.
Yeah,
and much of it
Nick
doesn't.
Gave you the most Nick answer I've ever heard on that.
I disagree with you. I think that was a phenomenal answer. I think that's the football wonk in him. That's the only time you get anything from Nick.
That's what you like, Nick. Yeah, it's true. You like Nick in this. Still, I just struggle to listen to Nick sometimes.
That's the football wonk stuff, and he actually explained what goes on in those 40 seconds very well, and it's got a lot more to do with than just the offensive line. You got to get the right personnel in there. Whatever you use, it's a substitution based game. Then you got to get the play call in. Then you got to get up to the line of scrimmage, which the offensive line wants to do quicker. Then the quarterback's got to ascertain what he sees, how the defense is lined up, try to decipher where it's going, play that odds game, and sort of play the tendencies and say, all right, this guy might come, this guy might come. Then you got to impart that information inside out, offensive line first, then the tight ends, then the wide receivers. Make sure the sight adjustments are on point. If it is a pass, make sure you're killing it from run to pass or pass to run. All this in 40 seconds. It's a lot more complicated than people think it is. And sometimes, after a
they're not
timeout.
they're not the first team to have to get the play call in 40 seconds. Yeah.
No, everybody does. But the
mean-
point is, and that's why I say, if you watch other games, this is not just an Eagles problem. Guys are constantly
Well, that's because
up against the
it
play
also
clock.
goes into the thing that you always talk about, where these coaches and these egos, and they want to call everything. Probably was much easier back when you had Peyton Manning. You just gave
Oh,
him
it's
a play.
much easier.
Yeah, and
You
you knew
go,
he was going to
you
go to the
run
line of scrimmage
everything.
and figure it out anyway.
You run everything from the line of scrimmage. That's If I were a coach, that's what I would be striving for. I would say there are very few coaches striving for that.
No. Yeah, unfortunate for sure. Johnny Mac, we'll see how that goes. Let me mute this out. Sorry about that. We'll see. We'll see how that goes in this game offensively, John. But that, with the Denver defensive line too, you just talked about pressures and sacks. How about first in sacks and first in pressures for Denver and first in pressure rate? So that defensive line is going to be good. I don't know if it's a Saquon game. I don't know if it's a passing game. I don't know how you see that. You think Saquon or AJ? Which one gets going this week if you had to pick one?
Oh, I guess Saquon. I mean, it can't get much worse. That's from a statistical standpoint, which I think is what you're asking. So I would guess that my old friend Alex Singleton is out there, which is, Alex is going to get 100 tackles, but 50 of them might be 7 yards down the field. So especially if they're concerned about the pass rush. And the Broncos they got a bunch of undersized athletic guys rushing the passer. So to me, it should be on paper, it should be a running game. And then they just have to, you would think the worm turns, because eventually it's going to take care of itself. He's not going to average 3.1 yards per carry the entire season. So that's what I would lean towards, more than, because I think if you see Patrick Surtain out there, and the reputation is going to get more risk averse than normal, if anything, because that guy can make some plays. So I think the risk averse needle might be up, if anything.
Yeah, it might be, no doubt. John, when you talk about these Broncos edge rushers and how good they are, Nick Bonito, he's kind of a fast guy, Well, no, I mean, that's his style. How did the Eagles offensive linemen handle that as compared to, a different style of edge rusher?
Well, they usually eat those guys up, Jordan and Lane. Just pure speed rushers. They usually eat them for lunch. It's another good thing Nick said. Little tidbits that he drops every once in a while. But, from an athleticism standpoint, probably the biggest mismatch on the field is typically defensive line versus offensive line in an NFL game. Defensive linemen are really athletic and offensive linemen aren't. And that's the biggest mismatch. Now, the Eagles have weirdo athletes at tackle, and that's maybe the biggest strength of their team. So Lane and Jordan usually eat up speed rushers because it's about angles. If they don't have the counter moves to it. So it might be a situation like where I said Bonito gets beat on 95% of the reps, but it might be one or two plays where he just blows by you.
Yeah. Kemsky put up a video on, I don't know if it was on his X or somewhere, he retweeted it or something, of a play where they were going up versus the Bengals on Monday night, and Bonito and Cooper met at the quarterback. It was literally a second and a half how fast those guys got there. It was an incredible play. I hope everybody can go and find what I'm talking about, because it was a nuts play. Let me see if I can find one.
Yeah, but that ain't Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson.
No, it's not. But you're going up against them for 50, 60 snaps. They might get you, once or twice.
They'll get you. That's the lament of the offensive lineman. You dominate. You give up one play. That's another advantage the defensive line has. Because I guarantee you, they get the best of those guys, Benito and Cooper, more than Benito and Cooper get the best of them. But if it's the right spot and the right point of the game and it's a strip sack, the offensive line gets shat upon.
No doubt. We're going to see how it is. It's a good defensive line. Now, let's go to Real Zeal. Checks in with the super chat. Appreciate you, Real Zeal. Pressures are overrated, he says in all caps. The way teams go for fourth downs and can kick 60-yard field goals, forcing an incomplete pass isn't a big play. Sacks are more important than ever.
Yeah, I'm gonna push back on that.
Let's hear it.
Well, his example is an incomplete pass. My example is, hey, Jordan Davis had a sack against the Rams. You know what that was, Real Zeal? That was, and by the way, great play by Jordan Davis when he chased down Matthew Stafford. That was the sack. No gain. Not a 1 yard loss, no gain. Statistically, that's a sack. On the other hand, different type of pressure. Remember the NFC Championship game when the Eagles were down to the Vikings 7-0 and the Vikings were moving the football again? In case Keenum goes back to drop on third down, and here comes Chris Long. You didn't sack him, but he got to him, and the ball came out, and it wasn't, it came out not where he wanted it to go. Patrick Johnson sitting there for the easiest interception in the world, returns it for a touchdown. That place explodes. The building is rocking. You could hear the noise in South Jersey. Everybody was telling me when I got home that I've never seen a play, and I've covered the NFL, that literally tore the heart from the opposition. And it happened because of a pressure. Maybe if he gets sacked, all right, Minnesota's punting the football. You don't have this huge momentum change. Maybe they stop him again. Maybe the game goes in a different direction. Sacks are never a bad thing because you're either stopping someone from gaining yardage, like the Jordan Davis example, or you're losing yardage. There's more movement and pressures, like, as you can say, incomplete pass versus Chris Long. But pressures are the most overrated stat. I'll tell you what, Vic Fangio will disagree with you. He'll say sacks are more overrated than pressures.
Yeah, but what about
what pressure percentage tells you is whether you're consistently getting an impact on the quarterback versus the outliers of a sack, which could be a great sack.
Right.
But
to Zeal's point, I think pressures highlight how you're playing consistently as a defensive line, which to your point is a big thing. But there is a big play, like there can be something to be said about a big play sack. Now, to the Jordan Davis example, that's obviously not one of those.
Well, that's what I'm saying. People look at it one way. It works both ways. There are meaningful sacks and there are useless sacks. And again, listen to Chris Long. Don't listen to me. The guy did it for a long time.
Yeah, right.
Look at the context of the sack. Sometimes Chris Long would have been, hey, Pletcher would pressure the guy and he runs right into me and I get a sack.
It just sounds like what Zeal is saying. I mean, he's talking about fourth down, kicking 60 yards. So it sounds like he's talking about a traditional sack where they lose 8 yards because he got sacked in the pocket.
Of course, but you're using one example of the many things.
What happens more, though? What happens more?
Well, what happens? How many interceptions are the result of pressure?
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, to his point, I think he's talking about the importance of regular.
But the problem is he's singling out the less meaningful pressures. He's not singling out. You can do that, as I just did, with the less meaningful sacks. What I've said is that sacks are never a bad thing because you're losing yardage, but the consistent pressure. First of all, if you get it, the sacks will come. And then the standpoint of all sacks are not created equal. Some are very meaningful. Strip sack, touchdown, very meaningful play, massive play. sack for no gain because the quarterback is scrambling up the middle and you get him by the ankles, not as meaningful. It's the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
But what pressure percentage tells you is your consistency of your pass rush more than sacks, because there have been years where you had big sack teams for whatever, because they have guys that finish and they were down at the bottom in pressure percentage, and generally they were bad. They were bad defensive teams from a passing perspective, because they're going to get, they might have the 5-yard sack on second down and they may give up 3rd and 15 because they're not getting consistent pressure. It's just a very flawed stacks. But if you look at it contextually and say, all right, James Harrison strip sack, that's a big deal. That's a big freaking deal. One of the biggest plays of the game. What I just said, tripping up the quarterback right before he gets a half a yard, not a big deal, typically. It's like stopping a run play at the line of scrimmage.
Right.
So there's a wide disparity of sacks. As long as you're looking at them contextually and pointing out the point of when you knock a team out of field goal range, that's a big play. Yes.
Pressure rate, basically, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but summing it up, pressure rate is a better indicator of overall defensive line play than a sack, a total sack.
By far.
Right. How are the Eagles grading out right now in that? What's their pressure rate right now?
Pretty good. That's the point. Pretty good. They're 4th in the NFL as a pass rushing group. Ushai just went down at 27.5. That's phenomenal. Zadarius Smith, 21.4. That's really good. Alex Hunt, not good. Nolan was solid before he was injured. Inside, Mora Jomo, that big game spike is now very good. Jalen Carter's very good. I just use the example. Jordan Davis, people think he's having a great year pass rushing. His pass rush win rate is 4.4%. Moro's is 14.7. For the people that think Moro shouldn't be on the field on 3rd downs. Yeah, he should. And that will, over the course of a full season, that will unveil itself even more.
That makes sense. Johnny Mac. Good explanation there. Real Zeal. Appreciate the super chat. I'm gonna take a quick commercial break here. I got to figure out this blinds driving me absolutely crazy right now. John, good breakdown here of the game so far. When we come back, we'll dive a little bit deeper into some of the key areas of the game, some of the key matchups in the game. We'll take a look at them, and we'll take some more super chats from the great people of JAKIB Nation. Appreciate all you guys being here. We'll be right back in about 3 minutes here on Birds 365.